Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for Tuesday, April the 11th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda, 1.1, Land Acknowledgement. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Next item on the agenda, 1.2, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, the regular council meeting agenda for April 11th, 2023. Are there any additions to the agenda? I have one under new business. It will be agenda item 8.1, Alberta Birds of Prey Foundation picnic shelter. If there's no other additions, can I get someone to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Reese, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.1, adoption of the previous minutes. We have our regular council meeting minutes from March 27, 2023 that were circulated. Were there any errors or omissions? See none, can I get someone to make a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated? Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4.1 under business arising from the minutes. We have our Director of Operational Services, Justin MacPherson, presenting on the Coaldale Cemetery Columbarium report. Justin, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the Coaldale Cemetery Columbarium. We discussed this at the 2023 capital budget presentations. At that time, Council had asked administration to create a RFP to consider all local or funeral homes to assist us in building a columbarium and operating it. Over the last couple of months, I created that RFP, sent it out to local funeral homes. Unfortunately, there was no responses, so at this time I'm asking for a motion to proceed with the columbarium and operate it as proposed in the 2023 capital budget. And I'm also asking for another motion from Council to direct administration to bring back both the rates and fee bylaw and the cemetery bylaw to update to reflect the columbarium. And at that time, I will bring back options for pricing within niches. I'm open for any questions you may have.
So when you said you had no response, did you get any phone call inquiries or no response?
So I discussed with four what I would consider local funeral homes, one in Coaldale, 3 in Lethbridge. A couple weren't interested right off the bat. I sent it to the 2 that were interested, the actual form, and I told them to expect the email on the Tuesday of that week. I sent it out on that day, and they did not follow up at all. So I think that's a consideration that they were not interested. So.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up to your question, was that fairly recently, or was it quite a while ago that you reached out to the business owner?
So I sent it out on March 7th, and the RFP, or it's actually an RFEI, it's a form of the RFP. It was closed on March 21st, so I gave it 2 full weeks. And so thank you.
Deputy Mayor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor. Didn't this whole process get started by an expression of interest in essentially an offer from a local funeral home? They just didn't have interest when push came to shove?
Yeah, the funeral home in question, I discussed it with them pretty thoroughly. Once they realized, once we were comparing it to us doing it ourselves, they thought that it would be much more beneficial for the town to do it themselves.
Okay.
And didn't think it was worth their time to fill out the RFP. So.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you just clarify again
going to cost $55,000 to build, and then what's the revenue stream from that? Or is that just a one-time cost and then it's revenue neutral?
So the $55,000 is the capital purchase of that. That's that and some concrete to build with it, is what I have estimated. Once we get the prices back, I'll have a more solid idea of the exact cost of this, and that's what I'll bring to council and say, you know, this columbarium cost, you know, let's say $50,000 for an easy number to use total. To make this revenue neutral, we should charge this much for each niche. But at that time, I'll also bring back comparables from surrounding communities and say this is what we can charge for these niches if we want this to be a revenue stream for the town. You know? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then one follow-up, and we've already got this money in the budget for, like, we set this $55,000 in this year's budget.
Yes, so at the 2023 capital budget presentation, it was proposed to be taken out of the cemetery. Just want to double check to make sure I actually have it. Cemetery reserve. So it's $55,000 out of that reserve. It wasn't approved at the budget pending this conversation.
Okay, thank you. Who owned the first one that's there?
It was a private corporation that owned it. They were no longer interested in operating anywhere with us. So,
And do you remember what they were charging for a niche in the existing one?
I don't have that right now, but that will be part of the next second conversation. I'll bring the bylaws back.
Councillor Pickering, did you know once what the charge was?
I believe it was $1,700. I could get the exact amount we paid for one.
Yeah, so I've done some comparables already in preparation for this. It's a little bit more, but that's why I wanted to bring back a kind of a second report on this. It's a little more of a difficult conversation because some cemeteries actually charge based on how high the spot is in the niche. The council's interested in that. The city of Lethbridge actually has a very kind of a complicated fee structure rate for this, but they range anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 I've seen per niche, and there's 72 niches. The quick math says it's a pretty decent revenue stream to own and operate one of these. So.
Thank you, Councillor Reese, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Justin, sorry.
No.
Do you know how many niches would be in there roughly?
Yeah, so this is, I'm proposing a 72 niche columbarium.
Councillor Beacon, or
That-
Deputy Mayor Beacon.
That answered it, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. In your motion here, the option number one, which I would support, is the budget of $55,000 to build, but you're asking to build and operate. Is it possible that we can amend the motion to build the columbarium as proposed, and then the operational will come from the second motion, which would be that you'll bring back a new rates and fees bylaw.
Yeah, so there's, under my recommendation, the first motion is that council direct us to proceed with the columbarium as proposed in the 2023 capital budget. That covers actually building the columbarium. The operating part is the second motion for us to bring back the cemetery bylaw and the rates and fees bylaw.
Okay, thank
That
you.
makes sense.
So I'm looking for someone to sponsor. If there's not any further discussion, that council will direct administration to proceed with the columbarium as proposed in the 2023 capital budget.
I'll sponsor that.
Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then I'll be looking for a sponsor for the resolution that council direct administration to bring back options for pricing of the niches and revise the cemetery section of the fees and rates bylaw to add prices for the columbarium niches. Deputy Mayor Beekman, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Okay, moving down to new business. The item that was added to the agenda under 8.1, the Alberta Birds of Prey Foundation picnic shelter. And we have Cameron Mills presenting, our Director of Growth and Investment.
This is the one, yeah, just the PDF.
Whenever you're ready, Cam, the floor is yours.
Sure, we're just figuring out how to get the application here. So we've got, council will recall back in September or October where we approved the rezoning of the Birds of Prey lands to rent control. And at the time, we also approved a development permit for the education center, and then part of the education center was an accessory building, which was a picnic shelter. We didn't have a lot of concrete drawings of the picnic shelter at that time. Long story short, what we have is that the Birds of Prey would like to move the picnic shelter somewhat from where it was originally proposed. Because this is direct control and because this does require, in fact, crosses the boundary of the two lots, it's not within administration's ability to amend the permit accordingly, so we have to come back to council. And in the interest of time, the Birds of Prey requested that we do so quickly, hence the addition to the agenda. And this way we sort of have the application here. If you could show the other drawing for me. So what it finally comes down to, if I may, can I control this? There we go. So this is the sort of the drawing itself of the structure. Zoom in, you know. That's the button. There it is. Well, yes. That's good. Thank you. So, I'll just let you do it. If you could just scroll down for me a little bit. The structure is, this is the structure here. In navy, right here. And you see this red line is the crossing of two technical property lines, though. Again, the Birds of Prey is using the entire space, so they're not terribly important property lines, but property lines nonetheless. So the proposal is to locate the structure there, which is a slight variation from what had previously been proposed. And in order to do that, we need council's approval. If council is amenable to that, I have a motion prepared that council can consider, and that will allow Colin and his team to go ahead with carry on with the project this spring.
So if I could get Tim to call up, or yourself, Cam, to call up those photos. So Cam was away, so I met Colin before he had to head out east. And the 2x4s laying are the footprint of a shelter. So on the top right hand, you can see where the corner of it is going to extend further past the property line. And the reason for that is on the bottom right, you'll see the cement foundation. They would have had it where it was originally was going to go. The corner of the picnic shelter would have been too close to the water's edge for their liking. So if this is something that council would entertain, Cameron, what would the motion be?
So propose, the motion would be that council add the following condition to development permit 2022-13. Sorry, 113. And that, so the condition would be the accessory structure, picnic shelter, shall be constructed and located in accordance with plans provided by Alvin Fritz Architects, Inc. as part of a development permit application received by the town on April 4th, 2023. And that will fundamentally allow administration to move forward with simply referencing the plans back through the approval or the construction process.
So then when the lease is renegotiated, is this going to need to be an amendment for that lease, or this is not that big of a deal?
Given that we own both properties, I would say, I mean, legally speaking, it could potentially be a deal, but given that we own the properties, I would suggest that it's not really something that I would be terribly concerned about.
Thank you. Any questions for Cameron? Councilor Saylor.
So it said that they were gonna remove part of the fence. Are they just gonna like knock it down, or are they going to extend the fence and replace it around the shelter?
You're gonna extend the fence.
Extend it around,
And we could add a condition that the fence would be replaced to administration satisfaction.
Oh, I was just curious.
They don't want the public to have access
Yeah, that's
to
why
that area.
that's what I was wondering.
Any other questions?
Question, Mayor, the fence then follows exactly where the property line is? And how that works?
Well, my understanding is that if it's not on the property line, it's very close.
So I might suggest a second condition stating the fence shall be replaced to the satisfaction of the designated officer.
One more time, please.
The fence shall be replaced to the satisfaction of the designated officer.
Works. Anybody care to sponsor?
I will.
Councilor Reese? Can I just get you to read the whole thing back one more time, Cameron?
Absolutely. That council add the following two conditions to development permit 2022-113. First, the accessory structure, picnic shelter, shall be constructed and located in accordance with plans provided by Alvin Prince Architects, Inc. as part of a development permit application received by the town on April 4th, 2023. And second, the fence shall be replaced to the satisfaction of the designated officer.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Councilor Reese. Any further discussion? Councilor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. So is the size of the structure staying the same as the original proposal, or is it bigger? That's why they're going to cross the property line. So is it the square footage, more than their original plan?
It's
Because
the same size.
like when you pull out a permit, development or building, you usually have things kind of staked out, know the size and where it's going to go. And I'm just wondering why these continually come back to get reevaluated and reevaluated, either through MPC, now direct control through council. And it's the same organization each time that these keep coming back to us. So is there a reason why? Like, wasn't it staked out ahead of time before they started their development, or did you just get a development permit on a wing and a prayer?
I'm not sure I have an answer to your
Okay.
question.
I have an answer for that. So back when the original application came before council, it was for the learning center, and then they wanted to do the picnic shelter at the same time because for ordering materials, and they wanted to hopefully get this thing done before spring. So then, I don't know if you remember, at in the 11th hour, they added the picnic shelter to the application. Then it was approved. And then it's the exact same footprint, but when they staked it out as per Alvin Fritz's layout, then it ended up being too close to the water's edge. And then that's why they want to move it now. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Maybe just a follow-up to Councillor Avery's question. It seems to me that in September, when we were reviewing this, that there were some concerns or questions, more questions than anything about proximity to water, to this. So we already were aware that there were some questions about proximity. And so I think that this would have been one of those questions, and I can't remember if the picnic shelter was a question back then or not. I just can't remember that conversation. So my follow-up to that is that this really, in essence, is a waiver to the development permit. Is that right?
We are treating this as an amendment to an existing development permit rather than a new development permit, and we're treating it as a waiver of the setback requirement relative to the property line.
So that should be addressed in the motion, but not.
No.
No.
No, because the waiver doesn't need to be explicitly stated because the waiver relates back to the fact that the construction will tie into these plans. And so rather than having 6 or 7 conditions that tie in specifically to the shelter. Having an all-inclusive condition that says that it will match these drawings simply means that we would basically staple these drawings to the development permit, and if in 10 years someone wants to understand what was approved, it would simply be attached that way.
Any further questions for Cameron? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor by Councillor Reese. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. Moving on to agenda item 9.1 under departmental reports. Once again, we have our Director of Operational Services, Justin MacPherson, presenting regarding an operational update.
Good evening again. So I'm here to present just an operations update. We try to do these a couple times a year for you guys. Started. So during the 2023 capital project, I just wanted to update a few of the projects that we've either completed or are in the process of completing, ones that have been tendered or RFP. So I'll start with the hydrovac truck. So this was a replacement that was approved in the 2023 capital budget. The RFP posted on January 17th, closed on February 9th. We received 6 bids from 5 different companies. We chose the winning bid from TKS Industries. The truck is on its way here Thursday. It's supposed to be weather pending. So you should see that truck going around once it's inspected by our staff and weighed to make sure it actually is appropriately weighted as we demanded in the spec sheet. We're weighing it ourselves to double check. So
where is this company located at?
this company's out of Edmonton, Alberta, just outside Edmonton actually. So, and that's the way RFPs like this work. Anything over $200,000 by the province is required to be posted Alberta wide. So, and I'll take any questions as I go here or questions at the end. So please feel free to stop me at any time. So once this gets here, like we discussed at the 2023 capital budget, this is for the utilities department to start catch basin program again, which protects the town's stormwater infrastructure. It's also to assist other departments that actually that's where you're going to see it used first. Our public works crew is pretty giddy on getting some signs done with it. We're waiting on it instead of renting one because we expected this in September, but they had one sitting ready to go for us. So pretty big benefit.
What's that? When you open up that white slider, that's all the controls on that side?
So I believe that is storage on that side. Okay. So there's tools that you store with it. The other side has controls on it, and then the toolbox is kind of around it. So I haven't seen this model in person. There's a couple of companies in Lethbridge that use this exact truck that we sent our utilities supervisor Darren and Scott, who's our fleet foreman. We sent them to Lethbridge to work with a couple of companies to check this exact model out because it's not something we had experience with. And the companies that have had it love it. So.
And as far as training staff on that?
Yeah, so we'll do a full training because it is quite a bit different than our old one. So you'll see staff getting trained over the next couple weeks. Mark, who is our safety advisor, has been pulling the spec sheets from. The one thing about this model that we're pretty excited about is we added a weight caliper system. So as the truck fills, it weighs itself, and once it meets that provincial regulation, it shuts off. So you can't overfill this truck and drive it. So we shouldn't see any more tickets for our operators. So yeah, that's how we found out the old one was overweight. We got pulled over. So
Deputy Mayor Beekman.
Is that a figure that you set yourself?
Yeah, so we can control that ourselves. And the reason why that's so important is because material weighs different. Like if you're doing a lot of the clay in Coaldale is very heavy. So having an operator guess where that weight is you're likely to get that wrong because gravel and clay weigh different amounts than sand. So that weight, once the scale meets a certain percentage or a certain actual weight, it turns the blower off.
But you can control whether that shut off is 18,000 pounds or 20,000 pounds.
Yeah, so if we're working on our own private site, we can change that number relatively easily.
Yeah.
So,
Councillor Pickering.
That it was fully equipped with boiler, everything. Like there's no add-ons going onto this unit.
no, the only add-on was that weight thing that I discussed with you.
Okay. So we should be able to do frozen and everything.
Yeah, we also have the flushers that do that. That's why we have 2 small flushers that we do frozen. So that thing is ready to go. So.
Councillor Reese.
So it's the 2022 or 2023?
Oh, I believe the truck's a 2022, but it was built in late 2022. So the way these things work is this doesn't come from a dealership like International. The truck is, I believe the truck maybe a Peterbilt. The truck comes, and then this company, TKS Energy, puts it all together in this model. So this was built very recently, so it's a brand new.
And can you refresh council's memory about what happened with the old one? Did we ever part with that one?
Yeah, so that one was sold. It was sold on auction. I don't have the exact figure here, but it was sold previous to the 2023 capital budget. So it was used into the revenue stream for this one.
Thank you. Councilor Reese?
The town logo, when will that get put on there?
As soon as it gets here, it's one of the first things that happens. We
Okay.
put the town logo on it. But it's on its way. So
You're not
Friday.
You're not gonna have a naming contest for this?
No, I'm not proposing that at this time. No.
You might want to avoid that for this.
I got one question.
Go ahead.
Where do you guys dump, by the way?
Interestingly enough, we have, as part of the Main Street project, it was cheaper for the town of Coaldale to build their own hazardous waste site than to send it to Lethbridge. So we have our hazardous waste site ourselves, and if it's sewage material, we can actually dump into our lagoons itself. So
And the other, only one you would have to use as far as hazardous, if you had oil or something where you had to
Yeah.
take to us. Who else? Okay,
yeah,
that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Great.
Go ahead.
Just where is your hazardous state at? Is it obvious, very secure?
yeah, it is. It's east of the transfer site, the Lethbridge County's transfer site. It's east of that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think that's it for questions on the back truck. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is our fleet capital replacements. As you can see, I took a couple pictures. That's one of the new trucks. That's the community services truck that was purchased. The hoist, that's still our old hoist. That's happening next month. They're just waiting for the order. So I just wanted to go over kind of some of the numbers we got back. So for the fleet vehicles, we had 6 quotes from 6 different dealerships. That's all the local dealerships. We expanded that this year. The budget was $60,000. We had 2 trucks, one for $54,000, one for $57,000, one from Lethbridge Dodge, which is the one you see there, and one from College Ford, which is expected next week. So the hoist, we received 3 quotes. We also compared styles of hoist. One thing that was mentioned is looking at a type of hoist that moves, like it's not fixed mounted, but it was about $30,000 to $40,000 more for that, and we just weren't able to justify that. So this new hoist, there's only one vehicle in our fleet that it won't be able to pick up, and I believe that's the Quint. I'm not very happy, but Scott is trained not to work on that thing anyways. So the low quote on that was through Timco at $61,227.
Deputy Mayor Beekman.
Lifting all the vehicles, could all the vehicles fit in the door to be?
Yes, all of them except the Quint. Yeah.
Okay. Second follow-up to that, then what happens with the old hoist?
We'll sell it through our auction site that we sell most of our fleet vehicles, so it'll be sold. We try to sell through things at the auction site because it seems to be the fairest and most transparent way to sell our old used equipment. So I can go into like why we do the fleet replacement program. This has been proposed in our capital budgets the last few years. Just the reasoning behind it. We want to keep our fleet updated as possible because the way we work our fleet is this truck will go, that one specific one's going to community service. It's a new addition. On the ones that are replacements, I believe the other one that's replaced is our utility supervisor because we try to pick the critical trucks to keep new. If there's emergency, he's called almost every time. So his truck will then go down to the utilities foreman, then that truck will go down through and all the way down to our seasonal staff. So it's important to keep updating these trucks because we push out the trucks that are costing us a lot of money, and those trucks are pretty old and decrepit. So this, the utilities foreman truck isn't just going to be sold. Most likely a summer student's truck that's a 1990s 2-wheel drive. That truck will be sold actually. So.
Councilor Pickering.
When these trucks were tendered out, did anybody ever check into like electric one for in town? Because the truck never leaves the town. It's not like we need 600K range. I was just curious on pricing. Like, did anybody ever come back with it?
We didn't tender for electric, but we know the pricing is, it's ranged from $90,000 plus. And for our municipal fleet, we just think it's more reasonable to stick with this now. Over the coming years, as those prices come down, it's something we would definitely consider. But for now, it's cost prohibitive.
Councilor Chapel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to the Quint, it's serviced here in Coaldale as well, or do we send it away to get serviced?
That depends on the service.
Okay, the service.
Scott, who is our fleet foreman, has specialized training on it, and we've actually spent quite a bit of time having him trained to work on most of it. But if there's anything warranty wise, there's a dealership in Calgary, I believe, that works on it. And I think last time that was actually they came here because it's cheaper for them to come here and work on it than us take the equipment up there. So.
Go ahead.
So this is our sewer lining. This happens every year. I just like to update council because it's a lot of bang for our buck. So we received 4 tenders from 4 different companies, which is unusual because usually we get 2, but In Situ Form was still a low bid. In Situ Form also does a lot of Lethbridge's, so they try to time Lethbridge's sewer lining along with ours. That's why we tend to get a good deal. The sewer lining program is important. As you can see that pipe on the right, that's the picture I like to use the best because the old pipe stays in place. It's cleaned out, it's ground out, and then they inject the mold, which is the green pipe, into it, and they use steam and pressure to expand that mold and harden it. The expected life form is about 75 years. I would say it's more than that because the old pipe is its shell. So this is a program we run every year. We get 2 or 3 blocks done. This is also working with our infrastructure group. So you'll see as we propose roads to be paved, most likely they have already been sewer lined, the water valves have been replaced, all the high risk things have been done, so then paving is worth it. So hopefully we won't have to dig it up in 1 or 2 years. So
You may have said it, but I probably missed it then. So the successful bidder for this one, this is a new company for the first time working with Coaldale?
no, sorry, In Situ Form's the one that's won it actually every time. They're
Okay.
a little bit. They're the trusted company throughout Alberta also, which is our kind of preferred contractor. One of the things with this, when we do these tenders, we do weigh in reputation pretty heavily because if this goes wrong, we would have to dig up the whole street and replace the whole sewer line. So your reputation and experience is really important in these things, but they are also a little bit, which is a bonus.
So, a little off topic, what's the largest pipe they can do?
I actually don't know that answer, but all the sewer lines in Coaldale can be done, and I know of companies. I don't know what's In Situ Form max is, but I know of large distribution pipes in larger cities like California have been done, very large pipes. So
And how to the potable water lines can they do those?
So there's been some demos in Europe that they have tried. We're waiting for that to be approved within Alberta's environment's practices. Once that's approved, I'm more than happy to start doing potable water lines. Potable is a little bit different though, because potable has a lot more valves on it. Sewer lines are usually just services to houses. That's literally just a pipe connecting to a pipe. There's no valve there. While potable has a lot of curb stops and valves along the way that you have to stop. The injection can't be pushed through a valve because that valve will still need to turn. So that's what they're trying to problem solve with the water. Once that's solved, we're going to be, every municipality in Canada will be smiling. So.
Any questions on this segment before you move on? Okay, go ahead, Justin.
Okay, so I just wanted to go over a couple summer events. This is a little bit later. This is a little bit removed now, but so we had a couple interesting snowfall events that I just wanted to highlight. We do, we follow the snow removal policy and we apply that policy as we kind of see fit. Because every snow removal event is different, and we have to apply the policy different to them. For example, we take the forecast into heavy consideration. One thing I've mentioned to this council before is while it's snowing, we're watching it. If it's going to be 13, 14 degrees in 2 days with a lot of wind, we tend to do less than more because snow removal is very expensive. 1 day of contracted snow removal, as you can see, there's $12,000 to $15,000 per day. That's just the contracted services. We also have to include our staff time in that. And when they're there at 4 in the morning starting, and they tend to be long days with quite a bit of overtime. So this was a snowfall over the weekend of May 4th to 5th. It was still snowing into, sorry, not May, March. I hope it's not going to keep snowing tonight. So this is the March 5th, which is this is later than usual. Like usually in Coaldale, we have snow in February and then it stops in March. We spent more money in March this year than we have in the last few years. So weekend of March 4th and 5th, it snowed throughout the weekend. The 6th, it continued to snow. That's when we triggered the snow event because we knew we had enough. The forecast said, the snow is going to stick around, and there's snow in the forecast later on in a couple of weeks. So we're going to get as much snow out of there as possible. So we started early morning, March 7th. The parks crew came in and cleared the sidewalks before, so we can get as much snow off Main Street as possible. And a pretty successful removal that day.
Councilor Deputy Mayor Beekman.
Thank you. How many snow events, contracted snow events did we end up having this year?
2023, we had 3 so far.
And then how many?
So previous last year, we had 2 total last year.
2 total, and we had
Yeah.
3 in 2023.
Yeah, so far. So 2023, we spent more money so far in 2023 than we did all of 2022. So, and that's why this is hard to budget. When I come to council, like in an operating budget, I did lower our contracted services budget for this because over the last 4 years, we just weren't spending it. And it was hard to come to council and justify maintaining that budget at $100,000 when we just weren't spending it. So I lowered it to 75, and you know we're still under that for now. But if we have a pretty wet fall, we might have to have conversations about using the snow removal reserve at that time, and that's what that's for, is to bump that up.
Councilor Pickering.
So you lowered the operating budget. Are you gonna up it for next year because as the town's expanding, you're gonna have more snow removal? So it's better to have a budget than come back after and not.
Yeah, that's a discussion with council. I'm still comfortable with it at the 75,000 point, unless we start having, you know, I guess we'll see. September, October will tell us. We'll go into budget season in November, and I'll have more information at that time whether I'm comfortable with it at that 75,000 point, whether council's comfortable with it at that 75,000 point. You know, our snow removal reserve, everything that we don't spend kind of goes into that reserve and other reserves. So we have it there for events like this because, you know, one event can cause quite a bit of money. Like these events were all small. We could have a very large event where we have to do the whole town, and that could be very expensive. So we kind of play it by ear, and I think that's worthy of a discussion in the fall when we have our operations budget meetings.
Okay, thank you.
In theory, that still buys us 2 more major snowfalls for the year, right?
Well, it's per day. So we're actually moving quite a bit faster now than we were a couple of years ago. So we have priority 1, 2, 3, and 4s. 4s we don't usually do. They're drainage streets. You'll see them get done more in the spring to prevent flooding. 1, 2, and 3 were done in 1 day on the February event, but that's because it was very cold, so the snow and ice just peeled off very easily. It's a heavy snowfall that could last 2 or 3 days. Every snow event's different, and that's kind of why I put this on this one, is that's how I want to talk to council and see council and feedback of how we apply these snow removal policies. So.
Councilor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. You bring up some good questions for myself here. So contracted services, each time that they're out is $12,000 to $15,000. So and they do just the priority 1 and 2 routes, or how far down the ladder do they go for contracted services?
Well, again, it depends on the event. On large events, it's actually a mixture. We have a hybrid system here where some of the events you'll just see town staff clearing it with our equipment, and that's enough. And then we can scale that up depending on the snow event. So we try to fill full days with contracted services because they also have projects that they're working on. So if we commit to them, we want to commit to them for full days. So usually we'll do as much in 1 day as possible and then decide if we need them for the second day or not. But it is a hybrid. Like, it is led by our staff and our crews. So.
Which leads me to the second half of my question. So our staff, I mean, we have the snow plow truck, and it's running around town all day, and so it's working at the same time as when the contracted services are on.
Yeah, so the snow removal is different from the snow plow. The snow plow is more of our sanding and snow plowing policy. It assists the snow removal program by sanding after the fact. But it's moving around town doing intersections. It's clearing some of the roads that are more rural that it can plow on, because plowing does require a place to put the snow. So you'll see the snow plow booging around town while the snow removal program's happening. But the snow plow, if it snows, it's working pretty much no matter what, because it's out sanding and plowing.
Any further questions?
Just one further question, maybe as far as Main Street was concerned, how was your success rate with snow removal on Main Street, these 3 blocks here?
I would say really good. We've learned quite a bit. This is different than Main Street used to be. The bollards and things, they don't limit it very much. I would say it's more important for pedestrian safety than for snow removal. A couple of things that these pictures you can see actually. So we send a tractor in from parks to clear around all the amenities on Main Street. That snow gets put onto the road for the big trucks to come and pick it all up and take it away. We learned quite a bit about timing and how to get them there before the trucks come, because snow removal starts at 5 in the morning and you'll see the graders on the road. So our parks crew have to be ahead of that, and you can start doing that. They're getting here at 2 to 3 o'clock and trying to get ahead of those crews that are moving so fast. So we learned some lessons throughout this period, because the first year we tried that program, we actually had no snow that year, where we could actually do a snow removal event. So these are our first real events to try that program that we proposed with Main Street. So, but very good. I couldn't be happier with our crews and our contracted services.
Awesome. Couple of comments. Appreciate the work that they did on the ramps on Main Street. That was brought to our attention by Councillor Pickering, so that's working well. Just a comment here by the flags when they're doing the snow removal by shovel. There's again, you got to find a hard place to put all the snow, but they're dumping it on the curb stops, on the concrete curb stops. So it creates people don't know where to walk because of those cement curbs are hidden in there.
Okay, the parking in front of.
Yes. So I'm not sure what we can do to mitigate that, but I was asked to bring that forward. So
Okay, I'll make a note. Do what we can.
Councillor Avery.
Thank you. A few years back, we put in a bylaw to not allow those curb jumps, those rubber curb jumps, and I noticed there's more and more, and you mentioned drainage streets. Is that an issue when you guys are out moving that snow? And if it is, are you working with bylaw to make sure that these are not being put in?
Yeah, so I believe the way our bylaw works is from a certain month to a certain month, you're allowed to have those rubber curb stops, and then they have to be removed. Over the last few years, we've had very limited snow, so that hasn't been a problem. We did have a few of them this year, and we worked with bylaw or we actually go talk to the residents ourselves. It's pretty easy. Once we talk to our residents, they understand completely. We get one every year that ends up in that snow blower, almost guaranteed. But we work with residents, and most residents are very good. They just forget that they're there. So.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to Councillor Avery's question, can we look at that bylaw again? I'm just not clear in terms of those rubber ramps as to whether it was all year round or for part of the year. So if we could look at that again, just to refresh ourselves. I also noticed them around town, and there was a bylaw that prohibited them, period, in Coaldale. But I don't know if we've relaxed that or if we have some amendments to that bylaw. If you could just help us refresh, that would be great.
Kayla can comment on that.
Sure. Through the Mayor to Councillor Chapman, I believe an update was provided on this topic through the community standards bylaw, so I'm happy to take a look at that and to circulate that to council. And if the wish after recirculating it is to bring it back to make any further amendments, then we can take it from there if that works for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just one other question, if I may, while I have the floor here. The snow routes, are they working? Like, I don't know if you have it. We have those signs that say during snow route on parking is prohibited.
Yeah, for the most part, people are very good. If we do have issues with some of the smaller streets, we actually are going to go knock on doors. We haven't had issues this year with the amount of snow we had. It hasn't been too big of a headache. So people are very respectful of the snow that was good this year. So.
And if we could just maybe spend a moment on our favorite subject, potholes. What the plan is for them.
Yeah, so I can update council a little bit. It has been a hard year for infrastructure. The rises in temperatures, the drops in temperatures, and the frost coming in the ground as it's 18 degrees is very hard on asphalt infrastructure in particular. We've noticed this through every community. So our pothole crews are out doing everything they can to keep up. We take complaints. We go address them as quickly as possible. If you notice any, please report them to our office. We're filling quite a few a day right now. We're trying to keep up. We're looking at new ways to fill potholes more permanently. That is a marketplace that is full of a lot of specialized equipment and a lot of salesmen. So we're kind of weeding through to see what other municipalities are using. Cold mix is what we currently use. It's the only thing that's really available in the winter other than the bagged goods that are sold by specific salesmen, which is essentially just cold mix with more oil in it, in my opinion. So yeah, we're looking at new ways to fill potholes. We're looking at equipment to purchase. Something that we're considering heavily is purchasing a hot box to keep hot asphalt warm and go physically fill the potholes with real asphalt. That seems to be the most effective way. However, equipment's a little bit more expensive, so it's maybe something we proposed in the 2024 capital budget. So that's your.
I fielded a phone call today regarding a huge pothole on private property over by Minks. There's quite a large hole there. They wanted to know.
That's actually a water leak. It's a water leak on private property that's being dealt with. The owner of that building is aware. Is working with our staff to fix the water leak as soon as possible. So that's a water leak that caused that pothole. So
Thank you.
How are you dealing with that?
We don't deal with that water leak because it's on their side. So, but as soon as possible because it is a water leak.
So they won't fill the hole in just to semi keep it because it's
currently leaking. I'll talk to them about closing that section of the parking lot because it's becoming impossible. They'll have to close that section of the parking lot. Filling it would do nothing at this point because that water is leaking pretty heavily into there. So we'll turn the curb stop off and hopefully they'll come dig it in the next couple of days. But it is a private person and private corporation that owns that building, and it's up to them to fix that repair. We monitor it because it does tie into our water distribution system, but that's where our responsibility ends.
Thank you. Any further questions for Justin? Seeing none, I'll need someone to make a motion that council receive the operational update as information. Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Pass unanimously. Thank you. Justin, give your staff an attaboy from council because they're doing a great job. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to information items. The first item, 12.1, School Age Care Directors Association of Alberta, a proclamation request, and Tim is going to play a two-minute video explaining that a little bit further. Tim, when you're ready.
For school especially is a very critical time for kids. So we call it actually the critical hours between 3 and 6. And these are hours that give children opportunities to find out their new interests, be passionate about different things they can, teach leadership skills, and really be able to build social skills, which is so important, especially before that grade 7 age. It's preparing them for what's next.
A lot of parents appreciate the program, especially lower income and single families where you have to go to work and you want somewhere safe for your child, but also where they're going to have fun and they're going to be happy. We strive for a place where kids feel at home.
We don't want the children to come in here and feel like it's like a long day of school. We want the children to feel comfortable and have fun. At these ages, children learn to play.
I see my friends from school and that makes me be a better person. And a lot of really fun games that we can do here. The art center, rock, there's lots of sports, even social with my friends. In the winters I go sledding, summer I do monkey bars and stuff like that.
You can actually get to work and then end work and 6 o'clock at night that's huge hours to drop off. So not that the parents always utilize both of those ends, but one of the ends is always utilized by somebody.
So much opportunity for them to build relationships and social skills, with the staff there and with the other children that they're hanging around with. It's such a unique opportunity to connect with them in a personal dynamic because it is their program and all we do is for them.
They're going from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. They're having to look at peer relations. They're having to find their way in the world and who are they going to be in the world. We are able to help support, be able to guide them through these different challenges, to be able to help them build resiliency, be able to help combat things like toxic stress, being able to challenge themselves, being able to push them. School age programs have the ability to help them find out who they are to start to build on what we call soft skills.
Our school programs is for everybody to come together one day of the year. community building. Focus on doing open houses and inviting the public and MLAs and anybody that can really make a difference in the funding laws for Alberta. Invite them into your program, show them the importance of the work that you're doing, and really grow our community together.
So this organization is asking a couple of questions of us. One is for us to light up our municipal building in colors like the city of Lethbridge does. They want to do blue and yellow. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that. The other request is to send a letter of support for their cause. And so that's one option that we can do, or we can receive this for information. So I'll open up the council and see what everybody thinks about that. Anybody have any preferences?
It's a quick question, Mayor. What is the letter of support entailing?
Oh, it's part of your package, so it's to support the organization. Councillor Reese?
Thank you, Mayor. I would be okay with supporting the letter.
Okay, thank you. So there's motion on the floor by Councillor Reese that we direct administration to provide a letter of support to the School Age Care Directors Association of Alberta. And in regards to Councillor Chapman's question, did you want to quickly review that document? Yes. Okay. Any further discussion on Councillor Reese's motion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Then moving down to agenda item 12.2, we have a document sent in by SEWA regarding the roadmap for what's going to be happening in the future with now that they've selected a provider for their waste to energy solution. And I was in conversation with our citizen member Kim Craig, and he said that he wants to come and do a presentation to council. They just want to wait till a little bit further along the pathway here. And Councillor Chapman is our alternate on that committee. Is there anything else I should be mentioning?
Yeah, I think most of the information's right here in your package here, Mayor. And on April 25th, they're holding a all-day strategic planning session in Brooks. And so Mayor Craig Kim Craig has asked me to also attend that. They've asked all the regular directors and alternates to attend this strategic planning session. So this is just to review the next steps, which will take them to 2027, 2028, when they will be starting construction. And so this will be, I think, just a lead up time to that. And the chair for SEWA made a great presentation last 2 weeks ago, Dale, at the at South Grove's regional workshops, and brought everybody up to speed in terms of the economic impacts. So this really will bring industry into a position where they can ship non-recyclable waste and plastics to the site for the cogeneration, I guess it is.
Okay, thank you. So with that being said, would you care to make a motion that we council receive the SEWA roadmap as information? Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to information item 12.3, the Green Acres Foundation report to the community. The executive director has requested to come and present with a delegation to council, and I've asked the municipal clerk to set up some possible dates for a future meeting. So they want to come and talk to us, and then we could talk to them a little bit more about the possibility of Green Acres having another home in Coaldale at some point. So that'll be a good opportunity and time to do that. So I'm looking for someone, unless there's some questions. Seeing none, I'm looking for someone to make a motion that council receive the Green Acres Foundation report as information. Councillor Saylor, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So that concludes the open portion of the meeting. I'll require a motion that council move into closed session at 5:56 p.m. in accordance with section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for items 13.1 subject to section 18 individual or public safety and section 21 intergovernment relations, item 13.2 and 13.3 subject to section 16 business interests of a third party, and item 13.2 subject to section 25 economic and other interests of a public body, and item 13.3 also subject to section 17 personal privacy. Someone care to sponsor that motion, please? Deputy Mayor Beekman, thank you. That's at 5:56 p.m. and we'll take a 10-minute recess.